NAACP has issued a travel advisory for Florida in response to policies by Governor Ron DeSantis that the civil rights organization said attempts to erase Black history. The notice reads Florida is openly hostile toward African Americans, people of color and LGBTQ+ individuals. The NAACP noted that the organization particularly took umbrage with Florida rejecting student access to AP classes for African American studies in March. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy visited Hiroshima for the G7 summit and toured the museum dedicated to the 1945 atomic bombing. He compared the horrors of war in Ukraine to the aftermath of the nuclear attack and said Russia must abandon nuclear blackmail of the world. He thanked the G7 leaders for their military support, especially the U.S., and asked for more air defense systems and F-16 jets to deter Russian aircraft, and thanked President Joe Biden, who announced a new package of military aid of up to $375 million to Ukraine. He said Hiroshima offered a message of hope for Ukraine's rebuilding. Hunter Biden is seeking to reduce the monthly child support payments he sends to London Roberts, a woman who previously worked for him in Washington, D.C., and who gave birth to his daughter, Navy, in 2018. The Arkansas judge overseeing the case called for him earlier this month to sit for a sworn deposition to answer questions about his financial resources. This would include revenue generated by his various investments, business dealings and sales of his original paintings. Roberts is planning to call Hunter Biden's business partners and George Burgess, the art dealer who sold his paintings, to testify if the case goes to trial. De Niro slams Trump at can he compared the former president to the villain he plays in Killers of the Flower Moon, a crime epic directed by Martin Scorsese that premiered at the festival. He called Trump stupid and evil. That guy is stupid, imagine if you're smart. Even Hale was smart in many ways. There are people who still think he can do a good job. Imagine how insane that is, he said of the former president. The movie, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Jesse Plemons, and Lily Gladstone, was met with massive applause and a 9-minute standing ovation at the Palais. Pope Francis called for warring factions in Sudan to set aside their weapons and expressed sadness at the violence that has continued for more than a month in the African nation. The fighting between Sudan's army and the rival paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, has led to a collapse of order. The rival groups in Sudan signed an agreement late on Saturday for a 7-day ceasefire that is due to take effect on Monday evening. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said June 1 remains a hard deadline for raising the federal debt limit. There would be hard choices to make about payments to Americans if Congress failed to raise the $31.4 trillion debt ceiling before Treasury ran out of cash and was forced to default. China Vice Foreign Minister Sun Weidong summoned the Japanese ambassador to register protests over hype around China-related issues at the Group of Seven, G7, summit over the weekend. Sun said Japan collaborated with the other countries at the G7 summit in activities and joint declarations to smear and attack China, grossly interfering in China's internal affairs, violating the basic principles of international law and the spirit of the 4 political documents between China and Japan, referring to the China-Japan Joint Statement of 1972. A group of young activists protesting in Rome climbed into the Trevi Fountain and poured diluted charcoal into the water to turn it black. They held up banners saying "We won't pay for fossil fuels" and shouted "Our country is dying." The group called for an end to public subsidies for fossil fuels and linked the protests to deadly floods in the northern Italian region of Emilia-Romagna in recent days. Rome Mayor Roberto Galtieri condemned the protest, the latest in a series of acts targeting works of art in Italy. Elon Musk's SpaceX and Unipol Gruppo have agreed to join forces to help people hit by flooding in northern Italy connect to the internet, facilitating rescue operations. Torrential rains devastated the eastern side of the Italian region of Emilia-Romagna, killing 14 people, causing billions of euros worth of damage and hitting agriculture particularly hard. Around 36,000 people were forced to leave their homes, and many of those who remained in flooded areas were left with no electricity. Rescue efforts are hampered by persistent bad weather and disruptions on phone lines. Under the agreement, Unipol acquired SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet terminals and will make them available for rescuers, hospitals, and the public. SpaceX is positioning its satellites to prioritize the Emilia-Romagna region and provide improved coverage. SpaceX, Starlink, and Tesla are happy to be of use in any way to help Italy and the people affected by the flooding, Musk said in a statement. Brazilian President Lula said he waited for Ukraine President Zelenskiy for a bilateral meeting at the G7 summit in Japan, but Zelenskiy did not show up. Lula said he received the information that Zelenskiy was late, but did not give any further details. Zelenskiy had earlier played down the fact he did not meet with Lula. Lula said he had no problem with Zelenskiy and that the meeting was not essential for their relations. He said he hoped to meet him in the future. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken have arrived in Papua New Guinea to meet with Pacific Island leaders on Monday. They will discuss trade, climate change, and regional security issues. Blinken is expected to sign a defense cooperation agreement and a shipwriters' pact with PNG, allowing U.S. Coast Guard vessels with PNG officials aboard to patrol its exclusive economic zone. The agreement will boost PNG's defense infrastructure and capability. China has been a major provider of infrastructure to the Pacific Islands in recent years, and signed a security pact with Solomon Islands last year. This has raised concern from the United States and its allies over Beijing's intentions in a region covering vital sea lanes.
Thank you for watching. Please support our efforts by liking and sharing the videos. Don't forget to subscribe to get our regular updates.